Clubhouse.
Welcome back to Pod Clubhouse's coverage of ATX, the 2026 edition, the ATX Television Festival. This is Paul.
This is Caroline.
We're looking at Friday today. This is a 4-day event, and we are on day 2, Friday.
So this one was called Funny AF, presented by Universal Studio Group. It was held in the Omni Bridge Ballroom. Paul, I know that we have stayed at a variety of hotels during our different years. Sometimes we stayed at the Stephen F. Austin. Sometimes we stayed at the Omni.
Sometimes we stayed at the Driscoll.
Sometimes we've stayed over at the Driscoll. This year you stayed over at the Omni, which I would like to recommend to you guys to look at the schedule, find out where panels are that you want to attend, and make your accommodations make sense to that. So in this case, Paul looked at all the different things that he was going to be going to, and he realized a lot of them were inside the Omni. So staying in the Omni made it a breeze for him to just come down the stairs or come down the elevator and pop right over to his first event at 10:30 in the morning. That is a pro tip. If you end up staying at something like the Holiday Inn, or you're going to stay across town at the Embassy, or wherever you're going to do, let me just tell you, you got to add all the time in for travel, parking, Ubering, whatever you're doing. And that can be a rookie mistake when you are going to miss the line for your first panel of the day. So
we've tried that also, staying further away.
We have, thinking we were being smart and saving money, but time is money, right? And so we ended up wasting a lot of time.
And endurance. I mean, distance is endurance, and it's hot.
And it matters, y'all.
Yeah.
So stay where your events are that you want to see, and I promise you, you will get more sleep. You will not be sweaty going to that first panel. You're going to feel like a spring daisy and super happy about it.
And where they had stuff last year does not mean that's where they're going to have it this year.
Always look. Stephen F. usually has a ton of panels. This year, nothing. We have stayed at Stephen F. Austin. We would have been super bummed had we chosen to do that this year. All right, so let's get to our first panel, Funny AF. We were talking about this one because it is an annual panel that they have. They bring out all these different people. It can be showrunners, creators, actors, and they're going to have this conversation just candid about the craft, the business, what's going on right now, and also just generally the future of comedy, which is fun, I think, for a lot of us to get a little behind the scenes look. And I don't know, I always feel kind of a little extra special when I feel like I get a little nugget of something that's coming soon, right? It makes you feel so in the know.
These were all very funny people. Every person on well, it's not really a stage, but the dais, I'll say, was super funny just in their own way. And the fact that Chelsea Fry and Oscar Nunez are co-workers on the paper, they brought some interpersonal funniness to the way that they dealt with each other. You know, like he would forget her name and stuff like old man kind of stuff like that. Oscar was much funnier than his Oscar character would make you think he is.
Oh, well, that's a nice reveal you might not expect.
He had this line where, it's inevitable somebody will ask something along the lines of advice for getting started in the industry, that sort of thing.
Sure.
And he said, now these are Oscar's words. He says, when people ask me that, I always have to say, put your clothes back on. We don't do that anymore. Those days are over.
Love it. Always come, one of the things that you need to pack every year for ATX is your sense of humor. Y'all make sure you're packing it every time because there's always going to be silly moments.
Well, and it's more attended by women than men, and it is a fairly progressive mindset, I would say, at the con compared to other places in Texas that day. So to make that joke was a little walking on the edge. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but that's comedy, right? The best comedy is always walking on the edge.
It was. You could see in the audience's faces, did he just say that?
Well, that's the best. That's the best joke, in my opinion.
We even had this bit. I don't even know if it was a bit where he starts talking into the wrong side of the microphone, very Carol Burnett kind of humor. And then he like Chelsea reaches over and flips it over for him, and he starts laughing because I don't know that he meant to do that. because the laugh that he gave was pretty honest after that. Yeah, people just loved seeing him especially, but everyone on there, they had maybe never approached their work in terms of like thinking of themselves as funny. They always kind of approached their work as dramatic work, right?
Okay.
And getting a chance to audition and make the cast of something that puts their humorous side on display was something new to some of them. But it felt very natural to be able to do that, and the way that the sets worked was, much more laid back than maybe some of their dramatic work.
So I'm dying to know, what is the future of comedy? What is happening? What's coming down the pike? What are we going to be seeing more of?
I can tell you what they hoped for.
Well, I'd love to hear that.
I'm
a hopeful person.
They hope for the return of more multicam sitcoms like TGIF Night on ABC, right? They want the return of that kind of programming because it's largely missing from TV right now. And they think that there's a place for it.
I know there's a place for it. I mean, our whole childhood was filled with it, and we were very happy.
That's why we're so competitive at TV trivia. We watched all those shows.
I also kind of think that like that short format, that 30-minute slot where like the actual content is only like 20 minutes, very much like fills the need of what people are into these days, especially like the younger generation. Like there is a need for that where, there's not a huge you don't want an hour-long saga to be watching every time, and sometimes you just want a little dose of comedy and like move along in your day.
Yeah.
I mean, for us, Golden Girls is an important part of every wind down of our day.
It's like taking vitamins.
Without it, I don't know what we do.
Well, this panel and the next panel I went to had a lot of crossover because it was the actual cast of the paper was the next panel, but including the showrunner, Greg Daniels, who also did like Parks and Rec and The Office itself and that kind of stuff, and his co-creator Michael Coman. But joining this group was Sabrina Impacciatore, who you might know better from the second season of The White Lotus.
Oh, yeah.
She's a member of the cast of the paper.
Cool.
She was the one running the paper before Dom Gleason shows up and runs it, sort of a la Charles Foster Kane. He like inherits it, right? And so he decides to run it himself. And she's been running it to be basically kind of like a tabloid, and he wants, and like, recipes and just whatever she feels like putting into it. And she brings a very boisterous, larger than life sort of presence to the show and the stage. She was like that in person as well. I wouldn't say that she hogged the spotlight from her castmates or anything like that, but she did shine, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's amazing. One of the things I like about this is that they had this right after in the same room, and so you didn't have to leave the Omni at all. Love that already. So if you were already into the two cast members who are in Funny AF, you could just flow into the next panel. You do have to leave and come back in. You do have to leave and come back in. And this was like in the previous one, there were no creatives per se, but this one had the two co-creators of the show, and they wanted to talk about things like separating this show from The Office, but still sort of existing in the same universe. Obviously, there's Oscar carrying over from the first show to this show. The importance of not just making all of the characters identifiably carbon copies of Office characters. They do need someone to bring sort of that Michael Scott energy, and I think Sabrina's character does some of that, but she does it in a completely different way than Steve Carell did. And so, yeah, they talked about just kind of what they're doing to differentiate the show. They gave us like a little preview of season 2. They did talk about Dom Gleason a little bit. He's the lead of the show, but he wasn't there. It's fun getting to see a cast work together. I mean, like the Funny AF is neat because they're all funny people making the most of an opportunity to ask questions or answer questions in front of people. But these people in the paper, they all know each other, work together, and have some rapport and sort of like inside jokes and things that already get them sort of laughing before the panel even starts. That's the cool thing about these panels is that you tend to already go in them excited and looking forward to stuff, but like also just I always come out like smiling and laughing, and other people are laughing. Like I don't know, in a world of like news and kind of depressing nonsense going on all the time, this is an event where I feel like I can honestly say like I'm smiling for like 4 days. That is refreshing, no?
Compared to real life, definitely. Yes, it is a high point of not just like the week, but the year getting to see this stuff.
And I mean, I would even say that though, like of other cons and stuff, like, you know, you're not guaranteed a laugh at a con, you know, like you might see interesting things and you might be finding people that you relate to or something like that. But ATX, there's something about it that the energy is always good. It's always optimistic. It's always funny and just sort of easygoing, because they do have this attitude that it's camp for adults, right? So it's this like, let your hair down, relax, wear your t-shirt and shorts, just be cool. Everybody be cool. And
That's
I don't know,
true.
I love that energy.
It's true. What you just said is very true. Like for whatever reason, and I don't know how they did this, but just there's like a social contract amongst the attendees that nobody's bringing their freaking kids. They're not really welcome. Don't bring your kids. And no one does. No one has like tried to sneak in like their 3-year-old. Like,
Well, that's true.
Timmy's not going to make that much noise, but Timmy is a disruption. But no, there is no Timmys. No one brings them.
And not only that, but like just their bad attitudes. Like that is not welcome either. So like being someone in line who's going to scold somebody else or be rude or line cut or do something like that, like that's just not happening. Instead, I mean, we were sharing umbrellas or offering snacks or talking to people about like why they came and that type of thing. Like
That's
there's
true.
just a good energy that I think I have to underscore, because I've been to so many different cons with you where it's like it can be very serious sometimes. Sometimes people are there because they're trying to get autographs or they're trying to get something signed, and this is maybe their business or this is something that they're going to resell or whatever. This is not that energy, you guys. This is like everyone's here as a true fan and they want to be friendly with everybody else.
Exactly. I have been to cons where there are people just frowning in line. Just get it over with. They just shove the thing in front of the celebrity and pay their money, and then they're going to go eBay it when they get home. There are autograph hounds that show up in the alleys here.
But it's kind of like apart from where everybody else is.
But I think, and it's also sort of like the game. They're willing to do that, but they don't buy badges, and they don't necessarily get their stuff signed. They're just.
We do not recommend being one of those people or recommend even assuming you should be one of those people. I think that part of the charm of this event is buying the badge and being a part of the group. You know, I think that's what makes it fun. I can remember the one year they were playing Are You Afraid of the Dark in like a ballroom, and it was dark and they had like beanbag chairs, and it was like fun as hell, you guys. Like that's the kind of stuff that I'm just trying to give you the vibe and the overall energy of this event.
So the opposite of that was the next panel.
Inside the episode, Homicide, Life on the Street.
So they showed on a big screen this episode of Homicide: Life on the Street called 3 Men and Adina. This was an episode based in fact that did actually happen in Baltimore. It was an unsolved crime. I believe they said it is still an unsolved crime. One of the things that they explained was that when the show first started in Baltimore, they got a lot of support from the police department. But then the police department started to see the show, and they said by halfway through the second season, they stopped getting any support from the Baltimore police because the way that they depicted the interrogations wasn't something that the Baltimore police wanted to advertise. They couldn't deny that it was true. They just didn't want you talking about it.
Well, okay.
And that was this whole episode was an interrogation. It was stylistically designed to fit the camera into this cramped room where the 2 cops kept taking turns, going back and forth, trying to get this witness to talk. You can only keep someone detained for a period of time, 2 or 3 days, whatever that period of time is. And if you can't charge them, you got to let them go. That's just the law, right? And so there's a ticking time bomb waiting to go off here, which is that if they can't get him to give them anything, then they have to let him go. at the end of that time period. And so there's, a lot of passing time. There's all the dramatic things like ripping a poster off the wall, and behind it is the pictures of the murdered young girl, and all the things. But it's rooted in the research and the actual happenings done by both the showrunner Tom Fontana and David Simon, who would write episodes. He would consult on the early episodes, and he wrote the book Homicide: Life on the Street that the show was based on. So he did all the research firsthand. And then they had Kyle Secor as a cast member who was one of the two leads of the show.
So as somebody who doesn't typically watch procedurals, what do you think about going to a screening? Like, would you recommend that people try a genre that they've never tried before and actually go to one of these screenings? Or no, like just if you like that show, you should go?
No, I would say if there's a screening, even if you aren't familiar with the show, I think you should still go. Remember all those years ago we saw like Letterkenny?
Oh, yeah. And then we ended up totally watching it.
Or sometimes you can see pilots that didn't get made, or pilots were done, but the shows weren't made. So
right.
There was an LA Confidential pilot. They didn't make that show, but they shot the whole thing with period costumes, period cars, period set deck, the whole thing, but they didn't go through with it.
And this one was held in the State Theater, and so that's the kind of thing where you can get a bucket of popcorn, you can sit there and like be in the dark and watch this show, and there's something about seeing like TV on a big screen. I think that is like, it's extra fun and unique.
The people involved with the show almost never get to see it that way, both in front of an audience and on the big screen.
Oh, that's true. They're stuck just on the set.
They're on TV, right? That's the way they usually get displayed. They very purposely brought us this particular episode. If you don't know, Andre Braugher was in his show, and he was the more experienced cop that was partners with Kyle Secor's younger, brasher cop, and they came at very different vectors trying to get the witness or the suspect to talk. Andre Braugher tried to talk about nonsense for a little bit to see if he could just get him to loosen up, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas Kyle Secor, he was just like the did you kill her, and just kept pounding at him like that until eventually both of them are coming at the witness in the same frontal assault kind of way. Like, the time is up. We need you to say something. And the acting being done by the guest star, who was the suspect, this was his last role ever. He died shortly after that.
Whoa.
And he just did a superb job playing this guy that the way they described him in all the questions, it did sound fairly suspect what he was up to, but only circumstantially. Just sort of like, is creepiness enough to convict? And as long as he didn't say anything and there were no other witnesses, they had nothing. And this happened in real life, essentially. Not the word for word verbatim interviewing, obviously, but the setup and the outcome.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good panel. Now, I know this last panel that you went to for the day, which was the 7 o'clock giant marquee event, was the Friday Night Lights 20-year reunion and the Texas Made Award. You guys, this one is a huge one for Paul and I. We watched Friday Night Lights. I think we've seen it many times through. Also, we live in Texas. We are from Houston, and we can relate to so much of this story. And this was an amazing group of people. So they had all the cast and crew of Friday Night Lights celebrating the production and the talent and all the opportunities for TV and film professionals is what this Texas Made Award is all about. So they were giving this out to this show, and I just think it's so much fun to get to see everybody again. For me, Coach, Mrs. Coach, this is what I wanted to see, and so amazing. So tell me, Paul, there's so much cast there, so many people. What did you think? I know it was like standing room only.
This was an amazing panel. There's been a long relationship with the makers and cast of Friday Night Lights and ATX. In the very early years of ATX, they really leaned on Friday Night Lights to put butts in seats because it had been made fairly locally, and it had just finished. So there was still a high level of interest in the show and what was going on with it, and being able to kind of associate those people with the places around Austin where it was shot was all very fresh. And at a certain point, they decided, the people running ATX said, we're not going to rely on Friday Night Lights to be our backbone every year. And so 10 years ago or so, they had a big blowout at not Panther Field, but it was the Lions Field. And they showed an episode. They brought out the cast that they could find, and it was a large turnout. And we watched on the grass this episode. They haven't really done a Friday Night Lights thing since then. And so this time around, they managed to score the appearance of Kyle Chandler, which was a pretty big deal. In addition to Kyle, there was Connie Britton, who played Tammy Taylor. There was Gaius Charles, who played Smash Williams. There was Brad Leland, who played Buddy Garrity. There was Adrienne Palicki, who played Tyra. She's a local, and she often comes to ATX for a panel or two. There was Derek Phillips, who played Billy Riggins. This was a interesting ad. Jesse Plemons, who played Landry Clark. You know, that guy has gone on to have a huge acting career. When Michael B. Jordan, who won the Oscar for Best Actor last year, won, he looked back, and in the front row of the Oscars was Jesse Plemons giving him a standing O, right? Mm. Yeah. Scott Porter was there, who played Jason Street. Stacey Orsano, who played Mindy Riggins. Luann Stevens, who played Grandma Saracen. And Amy Teagarden, who played Julie. They were all there. So they grouped the Taylors in the front center. And then, remember, like, say, Gilmore Girls or any other cast where they kind of do like a U or something like that? They didn't do that. They had like two tiers, like a riser with seats behind.
That's smart. That's much easier for pictures and stuff.
So behind the Taylors, you had Jesse and Adrian and Stacy and Derek. And then on the second group was where you had Scott Porter and Gaius Charles and Luann Stevens and Brad Leland. And then the crowd was actually pretty full of people that had contributed in the show in some way. I'm pretty sure I saw Jason Street's mom a couple rows back.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's also a fun thing, you guys, is that you never know who you're going to see in the audience. A lot of times that panelists or friends who are also celebrities will come out to see someone else's panel and like sit out in the audience right with you. You never know who's going to be sitting next to you.
That's true. And this one had a huge reserved seating area, and
I'm sure.
And you know, when they came in, the audience noticed, and they were, you know, lost their minds before they were announced, and because you know you're always looking to see if there's going to be a surprise ad or something like that.
Lots of times there are. That's the fun of ATX.
And there was a slight surprise ad. About 3/4 of the way through, Scott Porter got out his phone, and guess who was on the phone?
I don't know who.
Zach Gilford.
What?
Yeah. So Zach sounds like he was probably working or maybe doing something else, because Scott said he had a very good reason for not being there, but he wanted to be there. And Scott was sitting right in front of Luann. Scott played Jason, of course. Luann played Grandma, and so
Grandma Saracen.
And so Luann says, "Is that Zach?" And then everybody in the whole place could hear on his phone, "Love you, Grandma."
Super cute.
It was very neat. It was very awesome.
Charming.
One of the upsides to seeing a large reunion panel is you get to see all the people you recognize from one of your favorite shows. One of the downsides for a large panel is that when a couple of people get a lot of attention, like Kyle and Connie, then other members of the panel don't get to talk that much.
That happened in Gilmore Girls.
Unless the question was directly to a person, they might not get to say anything. So the moderator did give everybody at least one question to answer.
That's very good, because sometimes moderators can be focused on one person. I've attended events, not even ATX, but I've attended events where, like, for instance, I went to a Gilmore Girls event and the moderator was very, very into Twin Peaks, and Sherilyn Finn was there for Gilmore Girls. They had a whole panel of Gilmore Girls people, but the moderator just fell in love with Sherilyn Fenn, and and all he wanted to talk about was Twin Peaks. As you can imagine, this was an audience of Gilmore Girls festival people, and we were all like, I mean, cool, Twin Peaks, I love it, it's good. Thank you for acknowledging she was in it. But also get on with the programming, you know? And so moderators can really make or break panels. So really amazing that they made sure to spread it around. That's good job.
And it was a good panel. I don't know if Connie and Kyle talked to each other very much, but their rapport was instant. Their body language on the couch was like very familiar. You know, they are not romantically involved in real life. They both have spouses, but if you were their spouse and you saw how comfy they were next to each other, you might be like, what's happening here?
You know, one thing that I saw about them that I really appreciated, and I love when TV couples have each other's back like this. One of the things that I saw that they talked about is that they were adamant with the writers that they were not going to allow there to be an affair between Coach and Mrs. Coach.
This is true.
That this is something that they were going to draw a line in the sand, that this was not them as a TV couple. They were not going to do that to one another. And they were not going to put up with any storyline that implied that they were having affairs on each other. You guys, I love it when that happens. We're covering Dutton Ranch, and, you know, we have Kelly and we have Cole who play Rip and Beth. And man, they have their own lines in the sand about speaking up for each other, speaking up for the couple, and saying like, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't say that. I eat that up with a spoon. And to find out that Coach and Mrs. Coach had rules and had like, sort of just like, we're not doing this, it makes me love him that much more.
Well, and it's interesting when you have experienced actors on a set like Kyle and Connie would have been at that point in their careers. You know, Connie, she started in TV like 10 years before Friday Night Lights, and in the interim she had been in the Friday Night Lights movie. They brought that up. And Kyle had a lead on a totally different show before this, and so they had that sort of thing where they could do that. They could unite and say, we're not going to say those lines if you put them on paper. Turn the tables on the creators in a way that probably doesn't ordinarily get done, because on the flip side of that, as Adrian said to Jesse, remember when you killed a guy? Which is one of the least loved storylines in all of Friday Night Lights. And it was just sort of like the writers knew nobody liked it, and they just kind of like threw their hands up, be like, well, second season ended, so then we just kind of wrapped that up as quickly as possible. Because remember, that was the strike-shortened season.
I do.
Just sort of ended
without
any rhyme or reason, but it did involve that whole murder aspect of it. And yeah, Jesse didn't get to say that much at this panel. He did perform as Crucifixorious.
Which, again, how fucking fun is that, you guys, to have like a fictitious band? They also performed when we saw them 10 years ago. Grandma Saracen wore her house coat and her Grandma Saracen glasses and did the tambourine along with them, which was so funny. Like, it's so surreal and meta, right? To like have that happening.
And they played that Deviltown song from the show.
Of course they did. What else would they play, Paul?
But it was a super fun panel. They gave Kyle a lot of shit about how did he possibly think he could replace Billy Bob Thornton from the movie. If they're bringing over Mrs. Coach, then why not bring over Coach from the movie? But we'll just go with this other guy. So they gave him a pretty hard time about that.
I saw Connie Britton had some choice words. Pretty funny.
Which come to the end of the presentation where they come out to present the makers with the Made in Texas award, and they have to tell him, we had to give it to Billy Bob Thornton last year.
Oh, funny. That's true. We were there for that.
Yeah,
That's
so
very funny.
The audience just erupts with laughter.
Oh my gosh. Again, imagine the vibes in this place, you guys. Having these people who filmed together for so long and get a chance to be back together again on stage. You have all these fans in the audience, you know, members of their own family watching everything. The vibes are immaculate. Like, I just feel like you cannot have a better time than going to one of these reunion panels.
So I like to sit sort of in the middle so I can get good pictures, and I did get pretty good pictures of this panel, if I do say so myself. But that meant that I had to wait for people to file out so that I could be the uncool guy that we said don't be and rush up to the front of the stage with my DVDs out. And man, did I get the mother load of Friday Night Lights people. Now my DVDs or Blu-rays have Taylor Kitsch, Connie Britton, Amy Teagarden, Scott Porter, and Gaius Charles, and Jesse Plemons, and Derek Phillips, and Stacey Oristano, and Adrian Palicki. That's like a lot of the cast. A handler came and got Kyle at a certain point, and he was engaging with people. People had like their phones out and you know, doing the I would say like the say the line bit is probably even less cool. And will you sign my DVDs?
Agree.
But he did say the line on their phones. He did say clear eyes, full hearts. He did do the whole thing. I think he tried to play it cool, but he wanted to be cool also. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And it was just kind of neat seeing them all on stage because they're milling around for a second, you know? So
that's the thing. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, there's this sort of casualness about ATX that can include, and you can't count on it. Again, please do not show up as an autograph monger expecting this. But if it happens to allow and people are milling about and you have an opportunity, I mean, they're there and they don't tend to be standoffish about stuff. So long as you, again, be cool. Don't be shoving a bunch of stuff in their face, but just be gracious, be kind, say kind words, and you may get, like Paul said, the mother load.
And it, you know, they're standing there and it's like Landry and Jason Street and Smash all on stage, and they're like, so you want to get a burger after this?
Yeah.
It's
Talk about surreal. I mean,
it is
honestly.
surreal. It is surreal. Yeah. And like, I didn't expect this because they didn't really talk to Amy Teagarden at all, except for maybe one or two questions. But she stuck around the longest to sign things.
Well, that's very cool of her.
That was very cool of her. Yeah. To the point where the ushers were like doing the,
we got to clean up the popcorn.
Yeah. Yeah. The ushers have sort of a librarian vibe.
Yeah, but they have a thankless job, so let's be cool to them.
All right, so they did have a kind of what they called a homecoming event at the 800 Congress building.
So listen to what this event was. It was for any badge holders and their invited guests, which was ATX's invited guests. They were having a Friday Night Lights 20-year reunion, Texas-style homecoming, presented by NBC 100, and they had activities, photo ops, giveaways from your Texas brands, including like Lone Star Beer, Tito's, from Still Austin Whiskey, all kinds of fun stuff. Like, you guys, how fun. This was one of those things where you could just hang out. It started at 8:30. You could hang out, enjoy yourself again, find some other like fellow Friday Night Lights friends. You never know what kind of like cool like little memorabilia things you're going to find there. Very fun. These are the types of sort of like, yes, they're scheduled, but they're also sort of like unscripted. So you never know what's going to happen. You never know who might show up. You never know what they're going to have there.
And this is the kind of event that in past years, they've done sort of a different thing in this spot every year. Like they've had TV karaoke, but then unannounced, they had a couple actors from Glee be like the MCs.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's unscripted. You don't know who you're going to see. So like, you might think, I don't really want to do karaoke. Go anyway, because you don't know who you're going to see. So like when Paul's saying like this doesn't present itself as something he would go to, he totally went because it was super fun and you never know what you're going to see.
And after that, I was tired. That wraps up the coverage for Friday. If you liked this podcast, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to it on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you find your podcast. Please leave us a rating and a review so that other people can find the podcast as well.
Thanks so much for listening.